I do not have much time to talk because this is for a final in a class and I only have 10 minutes. Here's some things I learned in my Women and Gender Studies class that I have now implemented into my life. The nuclear family! So I grew up in Midwestern suburbia where the house I grew up in constantly looked like it was staged for a floor show where people could just magically come through and offer to buy a house if they wanted to. And our front lawn was always constantly mowed as the shadow of our American flag was cast upon it. I personally grew up in a nuclear family, my mom, dad, me, and a pet. Not exactly the 2.5 kid household, but it was close. And now that you know I'm an only child, you're probably gonna have stereotypes about me from here on out. But what capitalism tells you is that this is the only way to live. It's not, sweetie. According to The Atlantic and David Brooks, the nuclear family does not even represent most American family structures. The Industrial Revolution was actually the inherent cause of the nuclear family, and that started around the turn of the century, and by the 1960s, it was the most common family structure, 77.5% of families. So yes, capitalism invented your definition of family currently. Isn't that fun? The structure of the nuclear family directly represented industrialism, which meant the man worked a job and provided all the money for the household while the wife had to stay home and take care of the 2.5 kids and the dog. But since so many people were having these family structures, it actually enlisted trust in neighborhoods, trust in towns, and trust in churches. Because everybody was getting more similar and similar. It kind of sounds like the white neighborhood I grew up in where every household was a nuclear family. But in the modern day, people are starting to come together in what's otherwise known as chosen families. Groups of people that decide to live together. It could be a bunch of roommates, a bunch of people who have similar interests. All that matters is that they love and care for each other. I personally think that this is the family structure of the future since I've had a lot of friends talk to me about it. I kind of want to be in it, especially people in my generation. Gen Z, who are starting to become adults or are already adults, kind of like the older end of Gen Z. That's me. Some cis-het men, however, can find this emasculating where they want to, you know, take care of the wife and the kids and work for the family, etc., and don't exactly want to work as a unit. This is where we flow into masculinity. Hello! Welcome to the masculinity segment. Men in the modern day have been told to oppress their emotions, not doing anything remotely feminine, and being the most burly guy on the block. What they don't tell you is that it's surrounded by homophobia and the suppression of women. Here's why. Feminine actions and behaviors have actually been looked down upon over the course of history because masculinity is seen as better than femininity. But the biggest reason why gay men in particular are looked down upon in society is that they act femininely and not masculinely, and that is the stereotype that they have. But what society doesn't tell us is that we all have traits that are inherently feminine and masculine. We need to be well-rounded human beings to be able to express ourselves to the greatest extent possible. As for myself, I look very feminine right now, but I am non-binary. Just like women, men have to know how to like clean the dishes and take care of themselves and have good mental health. The biggest problem is that we are raising boys to see femininity as such this bad thing that other boys end up going around to their friends at school and saying that they're bad for doing feminine things or they gotta be more masculine. According to Eric Anderson's Maintaining Masculinity, homophobia at work, boys fear the gay stigma and boys rigidly police their gendered behaviors to best approximate orthodox masculinity, something Pollock describes as attempting to be a real boy. Fun fact! Gender isn't real. It was created by society to put us in these groups and make us feel oppressed, and it all started with colonialism. Did you know that the Native Americans actually have 3 genders? The third gender is actually called Two-Spirit. But this is just one simple example of a culture having more than 2 genders. There are many cultures around the world that have more than 2 or infinite genders. This proves that gender is systemic and was invented by humans, which is why it's been so tragic to see the suppression of the biggest marginalized community on the planet. Women. Let's talk about women's rights. Right off the bat, it's not the genitalia itself that oppresses us, it's society that oppresses the genitalia. The problems most women in society face is the fact that they are battling a double standard. Wear makeup, but not enough to wear where we notice it. Be sexy, but never have sex. Always respect me, but I don't have to respect you. And have kids, but say a size 4. Are they gaslighting us? The answer is yes. Patriarchy, yada yada yada. But honestly though, have you sat down with yourself recently as a woman and thought through everything you do recently? Is this an act or reflection of society, or is it my personal choice? Think about it. Women's shaving was started from pedophilia and the pink tax. Menstruation only became taboo because of colonialism. In other cultures, it's seen as a week of rest for most valuable members of society. We were told the woman came from the rib of a man, even though we were all born from our mothers and parents with uteruses. Don't let the privilege of a man get in the way of how powerful you can be with your feminine energy, because it's not lesser, it's just been suppressed.
I'll say it again like I said in the beginning. It's not the genitalia itself that oppresses us. It's society that oppresses the genitalia. Have a good day.
You know, that person has a point. Am I dressing like this because society told me to? Or am I dressing this way because I like long hair today and I like this headscarf and I like lower cut tops sometimes? Sometimes I do like having the longer hair like this, but in other days I like having short hair like this. You can make the choice to do what you want with your body, and that's okay. You don't have to do what everybody else tells you to do just because you present more femininely. And this goes for the other side too. If you're a man and you're dressing in a dress or something that's predominantly feminine, that's okay too. That's you expressing your innermost self, and that's good. I wash all this gel out of my hair. Oh no. Let me help you up there. Anyway, the LGBT community. So, quick rundown of some acronyms, LGBT and what that means. L means lesbian, G means gay, B means bisexual, and T means trans. And the acronym can also be longer by LGBTQIA. The Q is for queer, the A is for asexual, and the I is for intersex. Now, going by respective titles isn't always how people like to identify because we need to see it not as black and white, but more as of a spectrum. Not all trans people go to the exact binary of male or female. Some are non-binary, or agender, or intersex, or gender nonconforming. Just like when you're on the binary, your outward appearance doesn't always have to match your gender identity. For some people, however, having gender-affirming surgery or dressing like the gender that they do identify as is very affirming for some people and is a really good practice that should still be used, but not all people use this practice. Some men wear dresses, some women wear suits, because clothing should not have gender. And it does not have gender. It's all fabric, and we all can wear it. It's all based around stereotypes and society telling us what we can and cannot wear. Even non-binary people. Like, let's say somebody is AFAB, which means they were assigned female at birth. They identify as non-binary, but they still look like they dress pretty femininely, or their outward appearance still looks pretty female by society's standards. If they say they are non-binary, they still are non-binary. What you look like on the outside does not always have to match the inside. Sometimes it can, and in most cases it does, but it invalidates certain non-binary and trans people by saying, oh no, but you look like a guy, or you look like a girl, like you don't look androgynous enough. It's a big topic in the community right now to think that, oh, you don't look androgynous enough, because everybody thinks that non-binary people have to be androgynous in order to be valid, which is wrong. The biggest thing here is just to never assume somebody's gender or sexuality based out of their outward appearance. Imagine if we asked some of the same questions to cishet people as we do in the LGBT community. The Gay and Lesbian Speakers Bureau had some good ones to ask, like, what do you think caused you to be straight? Why do the straights feel compelled to seduce others into your lifestyle? And would you want your kids to be straight knowing the problems they'd face? Etc., etc. See, it's starting to sound pretty dumb and invasive, right? In the year of our Lord, 2021, even though things are starting to get exponentially better in the society and with the community and acceptance, we still have a long way to go. Just in 2021, even though it's only May, there have been 31 states that have passed anti-trans bills. Are you kidding me? So we still have a long way to go. Let's be better, people. Now for where it all comes together. Intersectionality. So intersectionality is way more important than people actually think, because it's how we are affected based off of all of the intersections of our lives and our personality. Two gay men could exist, but one could be black and one could be white. There's obviously a big stereotype against black men that are in the LGBT community, even more so than white men in the LGBT community. Your families will treat you differently, society will treat you differently. Intersectionality was one of the biggest things that I learned about in the class that I took in college, and the biggest reason for that is I didn't even think about people who may be disabled and don't look disabled. If this was a woman who had the disability and was white and cisgender and heterosexual, she would be more likely to be helped in certain instances, whereas if it were a man, a lot of people would tell him to either man up or to be tougher about the situation just because of toxic masculinity in society. So to summarize the video, intersectionality is what brings all of these topics that I talked about together and is one of the most important talking points when you're talking about women and gender studies. It is time for me to go to bed.